Warning, this video and all other videos on this channel are for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel and welcome to the week. Welcome to Monday. I want to go through a bunch of things because I'm seeing some craziness out here. I'm also seeing some very important news going around at the moment, so I want to show you that. I got a bunch of charts that indicate Bitcoin is going much higher in the short to medium term. And then, of course, we'll take a look at a couple of extra charts as we head into this week. So sit back, relax, hit that like button, and let's get into this. I found this, and this just made me laugh. We see this every single cycle without fail, okay? My prediction, no more 4-year cycles. Biggest drawdown from 1 million is only 50%. We passed gold's market cap in 6 years, and gold actually enters a deep bear market as this happens. So this whole thing about no more 4-year cycles is something that comes up every time that we start to go parabolic towards the latter stages of the 4-year cycle. And I would just caution against this kind of thinking, okay? The cycles will show up. They always do. I also saw this, okay? This is straight out of the mainstream media. Meme coins like Fartcoin are riding Trump's victory to a huge valuation, and experts say it's only just begun. Pretty wild, right? Pretty wild that this stuff is making it onto the mainstream media right now. So are you not entertained? I know I certainly am. Last week, we saw Russian lawmakers propose a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and now the Japanese are doing a similar thing. So this is what I mean by this space is really heating up. This is what I mean by a bunch of news continues to come out that suggests nobody is really bullish enough. And at the same time, we've got major bullish news here as well, because fair value accounting for Bitcoin has started. So if you don't know what this is, a very simple way of putting it is before this came in, if a company such as MicroStrategy added Bitcoin to their balance sheet, okay, let's say they added it here at whatever price that is, and the Bitcoin trades down and then back to break even, for some reason, they still had to report this as a loss, even though the holding of their Bitcoin had moved all the way back to break even. Okay, but now, thanks to this new set of fair value accounting, if the price is here when they buy it, it dips and then recovers to break even, they can indeed report no loss. They don't have to report that as a loss. So I'm not really sure why it was set up that way, but this is very significant news because companies no longer have to worry about adding an asset as volatile as Bitcoin to their balance sheet and tarnishing their year-end reports with unrealized losses that may not even have been unrealized losses. So this makes Bitcoin far more attractive for companies to add to their balance sheet, and thus we would largely expect this to have a positive impact because more and more companies will now probably be eyeing this space and looking to add Bitcoin as a corporate treasury asset. And speaking of MicroStrategy, okay, as bearish as I have been on MicroStrategy, I actually really want to see it make a new high this week. If it does, that gives rise to Bitcoin running for longer. That gives a lot more credibility to the idea that Bitcoin may not be having to entertain a Q1 top, okay, and in fact may have plenty of legs left in the bull market. However, if a lower high this week is printed for MicroStrategy, I think we do have to accept an early top for Bitcoin is the most likely outcome. The reason for this is MicroStrategy would have forward priced this final leg up for Bitcoin. So to give you a visualization of what I'm talking about, okay, if this current top for MicroStrategy is not taken out, if we don't see a higher high, it seems to me like it indeed forward priced the final leg up for Bitcoin. And again, we'll have to put on the table the early top, okay, the Q1 top will have, in my opinion, the highest probability outcome if MicroStrategy is about to pop up, make a lower high and diverge away, okay? And that's because leaders lead and laggards lag. So if that's what we're going to be looking at this week, okay, we're about here for MicroStrategy at the moment. If it forms a lower high this week and starts to roll over whilst Bitcoin continues higher, then I am personally going to have to take that as a sign that MicroStrategy is leading on the way down and the one final push up for Bitcoin will indeed be the top. That will be the top. So even though I am sold out of MicroStrategy, even though I have no real interest in getting back in, I may or may not take a short-term trade out of the short-term accounts, but I'm certainly not going to be adding back to this in my longer-term accounts. Having nailed down a 17x gain in this stock, I'm in no, position to be wanting or caring about a potential 50% push to the upside from here. Like I said, I might take it from a trade. We'll see how it goes. But really, the thing I'm most interested in is I want to, for Bitcoin's sake, see MicroStrategy put in a new high. If it does this, then we haven't got divergence playing out yet. We also haven't got MicroStrategy leading on the way down just yet, and thus I don't think we have to be too concerned about an earlier top for Bitcoin. But like I said a million times, but it's so important, if this thing prints a lower high this week, if it loses power and can't clear the high, okay, particularly if perhaps it gaps up and then sharply reverses down, anything other than a new high, and this thing will be leading on the way down, which also tells us again to be looking for Bitcoin's next leg to the upside to be a major top. It's also going to be dangerously close to seeing a weekly cycle top come in for Bitcoin. So I think whether you're in this stock or not, whether you're bullish or bearish or anything in between, I think this is the thing we all need to be paying attention to, okay? Can MicroStrategy give us any kind of leading indicator as to how much longer we've got left in this Bitcoin bull run? I also found something fascinating about the supply shock, the alleged supply shock coming in for Bitcoin. You can see the Bitcoin price keeps moving higher in yellow, whilst the balance on exchanges is trending down. This has led a lot of people to say things like there's not going to be enough supply, the price has to move way, way, way higher. And maybe there's some element of truth to that. However, when we take a look at this next slide here, okay, Bitcoin is currently trading its circulating supply of 19.8 million coins every 3 weeks. So despite all the alternative store of value and HODL narratives out there, this has insane velocity. Absolutely insane velocity. And keep in mind, a few million of these are lost forever. Satoshi's got 1 million. There's a huge stack held by the ETFs, by Sailor and all those other larger holders. The last time I checked, we were somewhere around 68% of the entire supply is held down by longer term holders, which means there's hardly any coins at all left in circulation. However, this metric right here tells us that what's left of the Bitcoin supply is changing hands many, many, many times over every few weeks. And all the while this continues, there will be no supply shock. All the while people keep getting into the space, getting liquidated on leverage, coming in here without doing sufficient research and losing their positions and paper handing and all of that kind of thing. We're just going to continue to have excess supply, which is probably the reason we haven't seen that enormous snap to the upside just yet. And for anyone that's thinking this might be all wash sales, this is a chart of Coinbase's daily crypto trading volume, okay? Take a look at that. Absolutely wild. So at some point when we look at these metrics, we have to argue, okay, eventually we're going to run out of Bitcoin, right? But are we? Or are we just eventually going to find a price higher up where liquidity becomes available because people want to sell out? In other news, the hash rate just hit another new all-time high. Absolutely magnificent to see. The network has never been more secure. We have never seen more capital investment into the space. And ultimately, our wallets have never been more secure than they are today. Moving into some charts, okay? These are incredibly bullish, if you ask me. I've been drawing a lot of parallels to this pump of late, okay? And here's just another way to look at that. We don't have to, of course, get to the top line, but if we do, we're going to be close to 200k. And I don't think anyone will be too disappointed with that. At the same time, if 200k seems too high for you, well, what about this? This move back here, you probably know if you've been on the channel, is just that yellow fractal that I copy and pasted a while ago. And if this thing is to repeat, you can see that puts us around 131,000 bucks in the next few weeks. Again, I don't think anyone would be too disappointed with that. And if indeed we're not going to have to entertain an early top, perhaps MicroStrategy can give us the signal by printing a new high this week. Perhaps there's some credibility to having to see this bull run well into 2025. And if that's the case, it would look an awful lot like what we saw back in 2017, which means all of this right here could well be ahead of us, okay? And if that's the case, then that $200,000 number is highly conservative. Undeniably, though, this is kind of a challenging call at the moment. Nobody really knows. I know a lot of people are very sure of themselves. Very few people out there seem to be willing to hold their hands up and say, we have no idea, okay? Absolutely no one knows how high this thing is going to go. And as fun as it is to look back at 2017 and say, this is what's coming, the banana zone, okay, we're all going to be billionaires. As much as I want that, of course, to be the case, as Tony shows here, the final phase tends to accelerate very, very fast around this 70-degree trend angle. If that is indeed what we're in at the moment, then we are going to be in 150 plus K in absolutely no time. And the key thing to remember is 70% advancing angles cannot be sustained for very long at all. And also, if that's true, we're already into the second monthly candle, meaning if we're lucky, there might be about 4 or 5 months left. And of course, if those candles are much larger, if they're all about the size of this one right here, then the whole thing could be over in absolutely no time, right? Just a few months. So I don't think we can take anything off the table. I think it's very, very wise to be open to both seeing this early top and to seeing this thing run much longer. Of course, everyone wants it to run longer, including me, right? That would just make everyone's life a lot easier. We'll make a whole heap more money. But I don't think it's okay to just sit here and say nothing's ever different. It's always guaranteed to top in October of 2025, because there are plenty of signs and plenty of pieces of evidence to support both of the arguments at the moment. Now, as time progresses, as we see more weekly and monthly candles, we'll slowly but surely be able to start to find more and more pieces of confluence to tell us which one of these outcomes is most likely. I know I've said it a million times, but I do think it's super important, right? I think if MicroStrategy can print that new high, then we can indeed start to look out for a much longer top, one that runs well into 2025. But again, this thing makes a lower high this week, okay? And any kind of long trades, I was talking to the members about this, there's a thesis to be long on a trend line break at the moment with quite a tight stop. And if, for example, you take that trade and it ends up being stopped out, then I think for sure we can say there's no hope for Bitcoin to be running into 2025. But again, you know, there's plenty of pieces of supporting evidence in both directions. You look at this and you say this thing could be over in a month or two, but then you flip over to here and say, well, actually, this thing may well have 10 or so months left in it, and perhaps 200k is absolutely pittance compared to where this thing is going to actually end up. So again, I think there's no problem with saying we have no clue, okay? We'll continue to take it one day at a time. We'll continue to stay open to all possible outcomes. And one last thing before we hop into some charts, I found this from Peter Brand. Okay, Bitcoin is breaking out against gold. Bitcoin priced in gold, now breaking out. And that made me think, let's check in on Camel's version of this chart, which is right here. We are now at 39 ounces of gold per Bitcoin. I would love nothing more than to see 100 ounces hit. That may well be a little ambitious. However, if something like this is on the table, then 100 ounces of gold is for sure achievable, right? I think 100 could be made here. And if we're going to be more conservative and have some kind of Q1 top, then perhaps for gold, we'll be looking much more at about 65 ounces. But either way, undeniable that Bitcoin is breaking out to new all-time highs in gold. Wild, wild times to be alive. And the gold chart not looking too bad either. Just needs to find a weekly cycle low, as you know. And then it should be party time. So we should be getting that flush, and then it should be time to get long out of a weekly cycle low for gold. And Bitcoin still, roughly speaking, following that yellow squiggle. So that's all I really have to say today. Welcome to the week. Welcome to Monday. Absolutely wild times to be alive. Keep an eye on MicroStrategy. Other than that, have a fantastic week. Much love from me. Cheers. Bye.
Camel Finance, he's the man to see. Rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame. Sticking to his guns in his money game. He's a badass, oh yes indeed. Camel Finance got the markets key. Taking us normies on a